All right, we are moving on to amphibians, which is another type of animals, different from reptiles. And here's how. These are the characteristics. Characteristics means special things about them that we can notice with our senses and how they move, act, and use their senses. So amphibians live on land and water, and they need to live in land and water to survive. Okay? They have webbed feet, so that means kind of like ducks, and think of like frogs. They have skin in between their fingers. They're probably not called fingers, but to help them swim. Okay, because it's like wearing flippers. If you've ever worn flippers, that's easy for you to swim easier. They have webbed feet. They breathe with lungs and gills. So humans have lungs and we breathe in oxygen. Things like fish have gills, which allows them to breathe underwater. Now, some have gills and then grow out of them. So, for example, frogs, when they're born, they are tadpoles and they live underwater and they have gills. Then, once they get onto land, they breathe with their lungs. Things like salamanders can do the same, but I learned that some salamanders still have gills when they are adults and they breathe, they have gills and lungs. They have both. So that's interesting. They're cold-blooded, so that's the same as reptiles, which means their body doesn't internally means inside, regulate their temperature. They have to sit in the sun to warm up or be in the shade to cool down. There's no way to keep like a same temperature. Now, they have no hair or fur. They also have no scales. They have smooth skin that's kind of slimy, so moist. So it's not like wet, but think of like holding a frog. If you've ever held a frog. If you haven't, go try to find a frog today. It's so much fun. They always have like a wet, slimy feeling. Okay? They have skin that's wet and slimy, which is why they need to stay in water for some of the time so they can moisturize their skin. They have 4 legs or no legs, and most of them lay eggs for their young. Okay? I'll go through some common amphibians. So it says there are over 5,000 species of frogs. That's a lot. Frogs don't need to drink water. They absorb it through their skin. So we drink water. They just sit in water and they absorb it. The eyes and nose of a frog are on top of its head, so they can breathe and see when most of its body is underwater. And you can see this one has its mouth up too, but its nose is up here. It could go down even farther, and then just its eyes and nose would be up so it could breathe and see. Whereas if we have like this much of our head above water so we can still breathe and see. Frogs would be like this. Salamanders. Miss McDonald loves salamanders, great ones. So the name salamander comes from a Greek word which means fire lizard. Salamanders do not breathe fire though. Salamanders are nocturnal. Do you remember what that means? They sleep during the day and are awake during night. And some salamanders have tongues that are 10 times as long as their bodies. That's a thing I learned. And so for today's game, we are going to see how many words you can make out of the word amphibian. So you need to write this word on your board, and when you're ready, push play again. So get a board out and write amphibian, Amphibian. Okay, so pause it here and write it on a board. We're going to have 1 minute because these videos have to be short. So I'm starting. Pause if you need to write amphibian. How many words can you make out of amphibian? 3, 2, 1, go. Don't forget rhyming words. Totally helps.